guys, so we're talking about the conservation of matter. You'll need your notes as well as your lab notebook. So we'll talk about what conservation of matter is as well as the copper cycle. So the definition of conservation of matter. We'll first talk about conservation of mass. Mass cannot be gained or lost in a reaction, and therefore matter cannot be created or destroyed. It's only recycled through different processes. And that's what the copper cycle is here. So if you haven't done this lab yet, you will soon. But in the copper cycle lab, we started out with solid copper. It was in a powder form, and then we added nitric acid to it in the fume hood. Nitrogen dioxide was being released, and copper nitrate formed. So we went from solid copper, added it to that nitrate, and formed copper nitrate. From there, we took sodium hydroxide and added that to the copper nitrate. So we took the copper from the copper nitrate, added sodium hydroxide, and formed copper hydroxide from there. All right, so with that, we added some heat. So what ended up happening is we had that copper hydroxide, the CuOH2, added some heat to it and filtered it, and ended up with copper oxide. So we pretty much just drove off any water from there. So we end up with copper oxide here, CuO. So we still have copper going through all of this. We took that copper oxide, added sulfuric acid to it, and then from there created copper sulfate. So again, we took that copper from here, the sulfuric acid, and formed copper sulfate. Then from there, we added some zinc to it. So the zinc bonded with that copper, that sulfate part, and then we were left with just solid copper at the end. The evidence of that it pretty much looked a lot like the same powder that we had started with, excuse me. So pretty much copper did not leave this cycle at all. We just added it to other things and formed new products from there. Eventually we ended up forming just solid copper at the end. So with conservation of mass, the copper that we started with, if we took the mass of the copper that we started with, it should have also been the same as the mass of copper that we ended with. So I want you to also think about why, if your masses weren't the same, what ended up happening, or why it didn't end up being the same. Oh, by the way, this drawing, make sure you have pause it right here. Make sure this drawing ends up in your lab notebook as well. Just dedicate a nice big page to this for your lab notebook. To summarize, elements can be combined with other elements or compounds to form new compounds. And we can take those compounds and break them down into their solid elements. Have a great day, guys.